have been directly with schools. E2, the clients for E2 are not schools. They're actually people who are commissioning schools. They're local authorities. They're sponsors of these new academies and things like that. And it was kind of a recognition that actually they're the people you've got to go and test these concepts with. And we didn't actually at that point have a huge range of people to go and do the testing with. That was a challenge, but my message to everybody is, before you go and do the testing, choose the right people. Remember the 6 Ps as well as the 5, which is the one about, you know, proper planning prevents piss poor performance and all the rest of it. Because actually, when you did the planning for those things before you went out and talked to people, you got the right results and you really did get your value wheel solidified and tested, and you thought, yes, we're actually getting somewhere. And the other thing is to say, don't skimp on it, because it's like going and talking to those people and getting them to really engage with you and feedback and actually share with you their thoughts and their opinions. Otherwise, the whole thing is just a complete waste of time and money. You've really got to get those people involved. That was actually quite a tough bit for us, because we had a whole load of very passionate product development people who thought, no, we know what we're doing, we know it's right, this is the way it's got to be and all the rest of it. Actually, getting that client feedback was the thing that made them stop, take stock, revise, review, and say, okay, what do we really have to do now to make sure that this product is a real product that we can take to market and a success? So, you know, that's kind of a big thing I just want to emphasize to everybody, is get that client testing done really well. We then went on stage 4, was about sharing with staff. We did 3 sessions to engage everybody on staff. So everybody within the company has actually been involved in some way, shape or form with training around the value wheel. Whether they're people who actually work purely on the administration side, finance, the lot. Everybody has actually gone through it, and it's really emphasised the fact that this is a central core pillar of what we're about as an organisation. Absolutely critical for us. But the first one, again, was okay, but the audience in the first session were a lot more challenging than the subsequent ones. And Ian and I sort of swapped our notes after we did the first session and thought, well, why is it? And actually, it was just quite simply down to the fact that people weren't clear about really why they were there. And it, again, came down to this definition stuff about, this is what we're doing, guys. It's about E2. Once we got that sorted out, the next 2 sessions that we did were fantastic. And I'll just sort of segue, I'll just dive sort of 6 months later on. A large number of the staff who work for us are actually involved in directly delivering training, support, consultancy, and working with schools. That's where pretty well everybody in the company works. And I actually had to go along to a meeting of a bunch of the delivery people, and I turned up there halfway through their previous session, and unbeknown to me, they were actually talking as a team of delivery people, saying, how do we actually work to ensure that our clients actually recognise the value that we're actually delivering to them, so that they become good references for us in terms of going and selling our proposition more broadly. And I walked out and I didn't know that was actually going on. They'd actually taken the vocabulary on board, they'd taken the system on board, they'd taken the terms, they'd evolved it to make it fit their own purposes, and they were then saying, okay, how can we now involve our customers in that same language so we can really start to help them to explain what it is that we do. So in terms of involving people in the company, it really, really made a big wallop, a big hit. A few things we did during that session, which I think were quite useful. We did actually ask people to just spend a bit of time just talking about our image. It was a really just valuable getting everybody together about saying, well, this is what people think we are at the moment. Probably less positive on the left, more positive on the right. Some quite interesting things there. People do believe we've got some certain amount of magic dust. And we actually went on there and said, well, okay, where do we actually want to be? But again, it was lining people up behind a lot of the things that we wanted to talk about within recognising what our values were to take the message forward. We also went through, you know, what is our implicit value? We'd got it refined down to this particular stage, and we were able to take everybody in the company down through that process. And I'll just dive off down into the functional box. People found that really quite interesting, is the fact that it gives a concept for kind of the breadth of intellectual property that we'd developed as a company. But then they got down to saying, well, what actually is the magic dust stuff? And really the magic dust actually came out as the top 2. It's about the researchology, but more particularly it's about the ologyology. And it was actually people realising internally that the thing that, you know, kind of the real bit of the kernel is actually not just about the individual bits that we do, but it's actually about how do you knit it all together into that integrated operating system that actually makes it function. So that was pretty interesting. The top left box was actually pretty straightforward to do. Anyway, moving on. Time is running. We also shared with everybody the big complicated boxes. Now, those people who've not got that far through the process yet won't actually have done these. But this is a really important part of the rigour about trying to put this stuff into play, is the fact that you're really getting down and saying, okay, what are the key things for which people that we need to be delivering to be successful in selling this stuff? And who needs to be involved in delivering those messages? And it's funny, it's taken us 6 months of actually forgetting this. But we've now, as a business, got back to the stage where we're starting to go back and say, we now need to revisit those top-line boxes of executives and middle managers and functional specialists, first-line managers and users, to start to refine our messages to say, we've got to be talking the right language to the right people at the right time to get them to engage in the value that we're trying to deliver. It's taken us quite a long time to get back to that, but my God, we're really powerfully motoring that forward now as well. So we did that around business, we did it around enterprise, and we did finally get to the point where, as a whole company, everybody in the organisation had a chance to read these value statements, to comment on them, to say, do I agree, do I not agree, and am I on board in trying to help us to actually turn these things into real, deliverable reality? And the ones we do like are the ones down for business, because I think they're really sharp and punchy. E2, deliver a step change in outputs for each academy or school year on year, higher rate of return from existing cost structures. That's a really powerful set of words to be able to take out to somebody who's in the process of commissioning services for a school. So that was quite a major step forward. The final stage of the rollout was about developing materials. So we were quite fortunate with the timing. There was a big conference, as I was saying earlier, for directors of children's services, politicians and people like that, up at Chester Racecourse in January. And we went up there and we did our bit, and that's where we officially announced E2 as a product. And we went there with materials and with the brochures that actually we'd worked bloody hard on. I think you'll agree they look very pretty, but the most important thing of all, particularly the three that sit on this side, is the fact that we'd really got down to the fact that we were focused on delivering outcomes, and we think we got it down to delivering the big outcomes. And then we said, well, okay, to deliver those top left outcomes, you need to have access to our developed intellectual property, our capabilities that are then described in the next two areas. So we felt it was really getting down to the fundamentals of what the value wheel was about. And all the other stuff, starting brochures and all that kind of stuff. This is all work that's actually still in development, but it really was about saying, how do we fundamentally start to describe what we're about? That was a big success, that conference. It went very well indeed. So that's kind of the what. Objectives, 5-stage plan, delivered, and how we rolled it out. Okay? How have we benefited? I'm still going to say it's very early days, but by God, E2 has moved forward a million miles from where it was back in June. I'll just give an example of that. You know, the product development team are now really fundamentally articulating what is in each individual aspect, each of the ologies. Each of the ologies is now being described in terms of its own set of value propositions. It's actually saying, what's the commodity item in here? What's the real Edison added value, and how's that going to help you to achieve the outcomes? So it's actually making the Bible that describes E2 an incredibly powerful resource. And it's fair to say that product development within the organisation has completely transformed. And E2, I say, we've still got work to do. There's still quite a lot to be finished before we can say it's genuinely ready for market. We've got till September, but we're working like stink on that. It's also turned it into a very compelling story, I think, and we're starting to find that now as we go and start to engage the market in conversations about selling it. How's the organisation advanced? Well, I've said the story about the advisors meeting going in there and them actually starting to use it in their own way. That's an amazingly powerful thing, because it's actually saying that people are internalising. And I did a quick phone round of some colleagues yesterday to say, I've come into this conference, what do you want me to say about Breeze? And I didn't phone anybody who was involved in sales, actually. I just wanted to sort of take a canvas of the rest of the company. And the thing that came back time and time again was the fact that it's given us as an organisation a structure and a framework that we actually all know and we all understand, around which we can actually plan our future development. And better than that, it's actually given us a vocabulary that we now all use and we share to help us to put that strategic plan in play. And that's the thing that I think everybody's found very powerful, but also incredibly liberating, because it actually means that people who didn't know diddly squat about the process of developing business and selling and marketing, they're actually now saying, I know the contribution that I can